Memories Night already for the Guaymas Island Historical Society, which is just amazing. We got together about a year and a half ago with a desire to preserve some of the stories and photographs and objects that are indicative of what this place is. And I don't think anyone is going to try to set out to say what makes this place so interesting, but we all agree that it is interesting. So with that in common, we set out to try to find photographs, record stories, and get together and just enjoy this place that we've all come to. And my name is Alex Dunn, and I've been here for a couple of years. I work at the Anacortes Museum, and I'm working on my master's degree, and I'm just looking for jobs and taking home doggy bags of all the food, because I'm still a student, so I'm allowed to do that. And it's been great that everyone has just jumped up at this, to this challenge of putting this together. What we have so far is we're working on becoming a nonprofit, and we're quite close to that, to get our tax-exempt status from the government. We have a space currently in the church where we're going to be being able to store photographs and two-dimensional documents safely and securely. And we also have a database that all these, as they come in, all these things will get entered into, so that in the future, all this information will be searchable, it'll be accessible to the public. You'll be able to search photographs by their topic, by their donor, all sorts of different ways, and it will really build quite a legacy of Guaymas Island history. And tonight, Annette is in the back, and she has a table set up and rows, and if you do have a photograph that you'd like to leave with us, either permanently or to have copied, if you're allowing us to make a copy, we can do that. If you have things at home, you can take some forms and fill them out and bring them back. Get in touch with us later. But mostly we just wanted to bring the community together, and that was the idea of Memories Night. The past two Memories Nights we've had some of our more esteemed members of the community up front answering questions and telling stories about the history of farming, the history of logging. We've had some of the darker underbelly as well, and that was our last one. But this Memories Night's going to be a little different. I think it could be called the 1,000 Words Memories Night, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And the idea tonight is we've assembled some photographs of Guaymas Island history, and we're going to be projecting them up here on the screen. And Alan Bush has taken Guaymas Island to, I think, a new level of technology here with this setup. And we're going to pass this microphone, which is cordless, and offer up, have everyone offer up stories, memories, insights, place names, face names, anything that these photos trigger, and in doing that, generate a sort of a living testimony to some of the history and fill in some of the detail of these pictures. So I hope everyone feels free to just jump right in. I do have this microphone, and it's, you know, it's a little awkward, but it'll help project the voice, and also we're going to be tape recording this for future, so we have a lasting document of this evening. So if you do use the microphone, it'll mean that it'll put you into the tape recorder, which will be real helpful for us. And another thing is, before you speak, if you would say your name.
Island makes scarecrows, and we're going to put them up around the store, along with the ghosts, which seem to appear every year at the beach anyway. Leo Osborne is one of the key people involved in that committee, so I'm sure we're going to connect these two. But we'd love to have 15, 20 scarecrows up around the stores on our first project, and have them be available if the makers will donate them to be bid upon, with the bidding closing on Halloween for a benefit of the Historical Society, which means you might buy a Leo Osborne scarecrow for your garden and benefit the Historical Society at the same time. So if any of you, I've heard a number of people who have said they are going to make scarecrows. I don't have too many handwritten registrations so far. I would love to get those in. If there's anybody tonight who's planning on making a scarecrow, I would love to have you speak with me and just give me your name before you leave tonight. So we are beginning the process of planning how we're going to lay out the venue and make it accessible for everyone to see and to visit. So we hope you'll support us in that. We're open to families, groups, organizations, anyone who would like to make a scarecrow for this project.
My dad.
Where's Jim Cater?
Where's Jim Cater? I see him over on the second from the bottom on the left, next to. There you go. There he is. Don Strom is go to the north. There you go. And I think that's Jim next to him. I thought, or Paul. Paul, Jim's brother. Where are you, Jim? That's what I thought, right there in the center stage. And so there are at least two of them. Marv, are you on that one? Yeah. Right there, Marv Schultz.
Paul is the second, Paul Yeager's the second one in on the.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Jim's brother.
Yeah.
What year was it?
What?
What year?
What year, Don?
I don't know.
I'd say it was about 1937. Because I just missed that. Jenny Gray, the hero of the Arizona, is 1, 2, 3, 4 in from the left side, way at the back, right up, right there. He was lost on the Arizona. He lived down Eden Road, where he turned down to what we used to call Susan's Beach, right across from the Forsey Farm. And right next to him on the right is Louis Patagon, who is still very much alive. And Steve Wooten on the left, which is gone. All the Wooten boys are gone. That's the only ones I think see there that would have been here tonight.
Isn't that Linda Porter's mom on there too?
Yeah, right there.
Agnes Schultz. And Juanita Spromberg next to her. Then Iris Forrester. Then Earl Sherman, I believe. Oh, yeah, Horace Walton. I kept this girl back. Earl's up in the back. Right there. Phil Allen is right next to her on the left.
Who are the teachers?
Part of the Sherman's Allen group.
I see Marie Bell was Marie Cater.
What was your teacher, Don?
Rasmus was the man, but the woman. Was she what?
Was she strict?
Yeah, pretty well. Real strict, but the man teacher, he taught the big room on the south end of the building. Fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grades. And that's Rasmussen, yeah.
Is Alice, you there, Bud?
No, we moved that year.
We just moved away. Claudia is there. Claudia Ashback, Claudia Reinhardt Ashback is
Where's she?
She's the.
down one layer, one down, now to the right, two, other way. Right there,
With the collar.
right there. That's Bud Ashback's mother, Claudia Reinhardt.
I see Marie Bell was, or Cater Bell was.
Yeah, that's right.
Row.
That's all,
Second
Jim's
row,
sister.
third one.
Yeah, but she's
Oh,
younger.
that's right, yeah. One more.
Right there,
There's Marie. That's Marie.
Marie Cager.
Put that really next to her.
All of the adult boys also are gone except,
There's
Wally.
Ben.
Cassie on the end. Yeah, right here.
Little bitty jeans. Yeah, I'm small.
So what would be the age range, the oldest child and the youngest child in that picture?
Eighth grade.
That back row is all eighth graders, Billy and Jimmy Gray and Ski Wooten, maybe. They would have all been eighth graders.
Front row would be Earl.
Pearl, too.
That's Aldi Wooten.
Where was the school, was the question?
School is located right where the park is now, at the corner of Wheelis and Eden Roads. That was facing west. Taking it back.
Can one of the students give us a description of what it looked like either inside or outside?
The
Can?
rooms were, the little room and the big room. The room on the left where the male teacher was standing were seats 1, 2, 3, and 4th grade.
Yeah.
First grade row was on the closest to the teacher. First grade was on the left where that teacher is now, starting from the left. You would find first grade and that right next to the second grade, third grade, fourth grade, all facing, all the desks faced the east and were in a direct line, and then right next to the fourth graders was the big potbelly stove, and the desk for the teacher was up in the front by the blackboards, which surrounded that whole east and south walls. Basically, that was it for it, except for a few little green chairs that were there for the first graders, the little ones. Then in the other room, they all faced north. So the 5th grade row was on the farthest east, and then the 6th was next, and the 7th and 8th. 8th was just behind that lady teacher with the 5 or 6 desks all connected together. From 4 1/2, that is. And the potbelly stove was the back of the room. Woodshed was out the right mill, and they supplied with plenty of wood to keep the area clean. The hall was right in the middle, separating those 2 rooms, and that's where we had our lockers and kept our clothes. Right behind Louis Padavon, Jimmy Gray, the entrance there was the entrance into the hallway, and then either side was a door, of course, going into the respective little room and big room. Restrooms were about 100 yards out towards the east.
Yeah, out there.
Why could you have something better than you had at home?
Was there a pump?
The pump was to the left of these, about just a little bit north of the end of the little room, sitting out there pretty close to the corner of the lot. And that's where the pump was.
Playground?
Playground went behind it, where you now see the park area, and was big enough so we could simulate a soccer field. We had a couple goalies, that is goal posts, that you could kick a soccer ball, and that was our playground. The only football we ever had was one I carried from home. We had a soccer ball and a volleyball that were supplied by the school board, but that was the extent of any playground equipment. No swings. Well, we did have a swing, I think, over on the left side. Not being the east, no, being on the north. Well, we had pickup games. We used old tennis balls or something for a pickup baseball, softball. Very little organized sports. We did our own thing with slingshots and.
Was the front door on the north side? Were those 2 teachers there the whole time?
No. Were there teachers there the whole time?
Were those two
These
teachers there for the whole time, or did they have a turnover of teachers?
In the 8th grades that I went there, we had, in the little room, I had Miss Paulson, Miss Scripture, and Mrs. Grice. So I had 4 different teachers in the first 4 grades. I had Mr. Rice in the 5th grade, and I had Mr. Christensen in the 6th grade, and Archie Thomas in the 7th and 8th. So I had 6 different teachers in the 8th grades. Yes, we had a turnover.
Did they all live on the island?
School bell was right in the middle, right above Louis Padavon. If you could direct a straight line, a plumb bow from Louis Padavon, the biggest young man there, the bell was right above that.
What time did it ring?
It rang in the morning at 9 o'clock when we started, and it rang again at noon when we had to come back in from lunch. And it rang, I think, before and after recess, which were in the middle of the afternoon and morning. There were no, remember, there's no electricity, so there's no buzzers or anything like that. That bell was the klaxon, whatever they wanted to do with it. But generally, it started the school day and it ended the school day.
At what time?
9 o'clock and 4.
Did you walk to school? Did you walk, or was there transportation?
Is there any other way?
Ride your bike.
Yeah, no, not many people had bikes either.
My aunt taught there either 1 or 2 years, 1924 and 1925. Her name was May Petty,
Oh, sure.
and my cousin Charles was about 4 or 5 at the time, and he went to school with his mother. So they had some younger ones in the first grade.
I knew Charles Clay, I knew the mother.
Is that
This
right?
lady right on my left here, you should meet her, Dorothy Faulkner. She was at St. Andrews. Probably, what grades were you there in school, Dorothy?
Oh, just the 8th grade, and I was only there 3 months. But some of the teachers that I had in town were over when my boys started going to school. Mr. Rice and Mrs. McShane, she was Mrs. Leatherwood when I had her in town.
Who did you have here? Do you remember on Wim's? Petty? Oh, see, there you go.
It'd be nice to talk with you.
That was in 1929.
I'm Jerry McCormack. Charles went on to become a kind of a world famous pathologist.
He did.
You know, from that start, from that school.
Mrs. Petty was a lovely lady. That's what I remember about her.
She was a neat gal, yeah.
She had one son, didn't she?
Charles, he was just saying.
I'm Carol Deach. I'm Marvin Schultz's daughter. My sister and I also went to this school. We went to this school until they closed it down. And we lived on the 40-acre place, which is just down the road towards the ferry dock, and I would walk to the school until we moved to the farmhouse. But the schoolhouse at that time, there was fewer children. A lot of the children of those up there went to this school, and the left-hand side in the picture was where we played indoors. There were no classes in there. It was all a wood floor, and when it was raining, we would play recess in there. Straight ahead, they did have a bathroom. We had a bathroom, a one-hole bathroom, and we had our coat closets. And then to the right was the schoolroom, and the teacher's desk was right inside the door, and a potbelly stove was still there. And I remember we had cupboards alongside those windows to the right, and that we each was assigned a cupboard. And because we each would put our work in there after we finished with a lesson, and keep our pencils and our paper and everything like that. And the thing is, we had several grades in the one classroom. My sister and I were in the same room. The teacher taught think Mrs. Miles was one, and Mrs. Snow. And then in 5th grade, they shut down the school. I don't think they could get people to come over here and teach anymore. And so they shut down the school, and we were taken to over to Anacortes, and the first teacher that I had was Mrs. Van Ornum. And my dad said that her son taught him. So Mrs. Van Ornum was, I'll never forget that. It's kind of ironic that her son would teach my dad, and it was, you'd think it'd be just the opposite. But we had a swing set, very large swing set to the south of the school. We had a merry-go-round and we had a slide. So we had, by that time, you know, my sister, we put my sister on the merry-go-round and make her sick and throw up. Of course, you know, because she gets so, it's fun. Yeah, a lot of descendants from some of these families up here still went to school, and I mean, till it was shut down.
What year was the shutdown? Did they shut down the school?
Let's see.
63, wasn't it?
If I was in the 5th grade, how old would I be?
Be about 62 because you were born in 50, so.
Yeah, I was born in 1950, so 62, my husband said. He's good at math, I'm not. It's a good thing I was born in 1950, that's the only way I remember my age. I don't have to subtract any numbers, just 0. So it was a really neat school, though. I was really sad to leave it. It was a lot of fun, and I do have a picture of the same thing. We were just looking at it at Mom's house, and I'll try and get a picture copied because I'm going to take it home and scan it, of all of us kids standing in the same place. Just like that, only there was a lot fewer, and there's not as many that stayed. They were kind of more people who came and then left the island. Like, Mom, what were they? Susie Radke's and, Ted Bingensdorf and, anyways, I'll try to get that picture for you. Yeah, it didn't change much, except we only used half the school. That's about it.
Should we do a new photo?
Bob Anderson, but I've got a question for you. I just looked at the dates here, and my beginning of grade school isn't that much later than this picture. And I remember back in rural New England, most everybody rode bikes to school, and some even came on horseback, and we always had dogs trailing after us who hung around the playground for recesses and then went home with us after school. Or if anything like that happened when you went to school here. Did kids ride bikes? Did they?
Very few bikes.
We did have incidents with dogs.
We had a collie dog named Scotty who would go to school with us in the morning and stay and just wait for us and go home with us after school.
So here's slide 2. Does anyone have a location for us?
Yeah. Yeah, this is North Beach, and that big house on the right is where the Ashbacks. Reinhardt, yeah. That was the old Reinhardt farm, yeah.
Any memories?
Yeah.
Want to hear that?
That was. Well, you didn't say it in the mic.
Yeah.
That was Butch Krieger.
That was Butch Krieger.
What's that pipe leading out to the house? It looks like a pipe.
Probably a ditch.
Height movements from left to right and bottom right.
Yeah.
All we know was a dairy, and they delivered milk. I remember, because I was a little child, and I had a summer place on North Beach, and my house was.
Wait, Melita.
Oh.
You have to be on camera too.
Okay, my name is remember rowing down and getting driftwood for our bonfires, and of course we no longer have that. Anyway, that's, since Buddy didn't want to say anything about his home.
Are those burn trees, it looks like, kind of in the bottom of the picture, they're burn things? Because it's so flat, with no vegetation, I just wondered if it burned at one time.
Was the trees burned out?
Yeah, the stump farm.
It was like a farm, it was fields with cows out there, and, I don't remember a tree. Okay, good.
Well, I'm going to Ashback, and, see, the big house there is something that I don't know anything about. Or I don't, but by the time I came into the world, that thing was gone, and my mom's house, of course, was built by my grandfather, and it's still there. But of course, the big barn there, my grandfather, Claude, he didn't do much work in his life, and I don't, but he had 5 or 6 milk cows, and that's about all he did. No, he wasn't a great worker. I think probably Bud Strong, you got more knowledge about that than I do. But I do recall, like, if you, like, between the big barn and the house, there was the garage, and the garage is the lower one, closer to the big house. And he had I don't know, there's 2 things that are stuck up there, you can just barely see them, but he had a windmill up there. And he had a generator for a 6-volt battery, and that's how he had electricity in his house. So he did capture the wind, and then he had a carbide system where he would put this carbide together with water, and then he would get his acetylene gas, and he had gas lighting in the barn for a while because of that. And but my parents eventually tore all those things down, and of course there's 2 cabins down there now. But I don't remember the White House.
What years?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you anything about that big house.
It has to be before 1935, because there was no house there when I used to go by that farm.
I think your grandpa built that house that now is we think of as the Reinhardt House / Ashback in about 1930, because it was always kind of an ultra-modern, new-looking home. It still looks good. And this one, I think either they tore down or burned down very close to the same site. This is Bud Strong again. My brother worked for Claude, and they actually harvested oats in that peat valley there. And that whole area from what we think of now as the road along North Beach, clear back up to where the artesian well is, where Maclop, and then George, help me on the name of it. George Wilson has his gravel place, and but this stayed that way, except for the large old home there, the old Reinhardt building, until we bought our lot over there in the early 60s. And it was that whole area of the Albertson camping track was stayed intact because of some legalities on the sale of any of the property until the youngest son became age, which was Buzzy Reinhardt. And so then that's when we bought our lot from the Ashbacks. But from where that, you see the tree on the left there, from there all the way westward from that position, that was the summer home sites of all the business people in Anacortes. And so way back in the early 20s, there was, I think into the teens, there was an encampment of those homes just as you see them now. Some of the same ownerships were there then. that are there now, the Gilkeys and the Stapps and other ones, had their summer homes right in that location from where that, you see that first tree on the left.
How about the next slide?
I got one more.
Oh, one more. Hold on, Stan.
Which trigger again? Where that barn is the present location of the gallery, yard gallery.
North wind.
And not a lot of imagination because the weather looks like about exactly as it is today, right? Okay, how about slide 3? What do we have?
Another location, same location, different angle. That was taken almost directly in front of the president's Ashback house on the corner. The road would take off to the left, go up the hill right there where the cameraman must have been taking this.
What were those posts? Right.
What? Probably telephone line.
They didn't have telephone at the top.
I can't, what do you think?
Telephones in about 1924 on North Beach anyway.
Telephones, no electricity.
Our number was 14F12, one long and two short. And everybody else knew it too.
When did the electricity come to North Beach?
In the 50s. Marvin says in the 40s, 49.
49? Does anyone, what, was there an event or anything, or?
Marvin Schultz.
Yeah.
When you got it.
49. Did you have a celebration, or what did you, was there an event of turning on the lights and celebration?
You should tell them cutting your leg and have them get the power guys to go.
Well, I know, but I think mine was a little bit old.
Was,
Mine was like 4. So they were redoing the ones that wasn't the first.
when he passed away, I found a clipping in his papers that where they, and there's, the other man with Bubbles. I was gonna put that,
Don Finley.
yeah.
Who is speaking?
Dorothy Faulkner.
I was Dorothy St. Andrew. My folks were Joe and Rose St. Andrew, and they was on Primus quite a few years.
Where is this house located?
Here's slide 4.
Well, where is it?
Does anyone have a location of this one?
That's just a third view of the same Ashback house that we talked about before. We're right down North Beach, and the road just circled up the hill in the front of that, and that's the present. It was called the Reinhardt House then. That's the one they clawed and his wife built. Very modern looking house, by the way.
How about slide 5? Location?
Wynn Anderson, and this picture is taken right in front of our present house.
Who is speaking?
This is Wynn Anderson. Everybody hear that? And this picture was taken in front of our house, our present house at 6241 South Shore Road. And on the bridge is the Matthews, part of the Matthews plan, including Maud Wooten as a child. It's in the wagon. I'm not sure you'll notice a gully that drains the valley. There's a seasonal creek that runs all the way from the valley to South Shore. And the bridge is gone now, of course, but there's a county culvert there, a 30-inch culvert, and it's all filled in over that. The orchard in the background is right there. That's pretty much gone now. There's only 4 apple trees and a couple of pear trees left. We lost 3 of them again this year, or last year in the storm. Actually, I was working on a little pathway down to the beach and found one of the posts that still exist from this bridge. And quite a bit of garbage.
Where's the house that's in this picture?
I don't know.
Where's the house?
Is that where the yellow house that is now?
No, that's,
In which direction are the horses traveling?
West.
Okay.
We're so traveling
And
west.
where's the water?
So is that bridge at the present location of the present road?
Does the bridge follow the current road?
Right.
yes, it does. Very close to the present road at that location.
You know the year of the photograph?
I do not.
How about slide number 6?
Is that, no, that's West Shore. Close to East. Isn't that?
This is Bud Strong again, and that's our old farm. It's now, several ownerships have taken place since that time, but the barn is what you see, the first building on the right, and then the chicken house is next to it, and then that 2-story structure, the gabled structure to the left there is the house. We added on to another part of the house, which is to the left of that, when I was probably around 1930. I'd say around 1930. I think this was taken probably just after we sold in 1936 or 1935, because that water tower was built by Newton, the people that bought our place, and so my brother helped him build that, so I know that it had to be right around that time. My Uncle Julius Strong lived in the next farm up, and those big fir trees that you see there are kind of identify that place. You can always look up there and recognize where your Uncle Julius's place was by those big trees. On West Beach, that's Cypress off to the distance, and this is the Bellingham Channel. And so Edens Road would be just to our right, where you see these those verticals running up and down. We raised strawberries and loganberries, and there were always pickers there in the summer, and some of the fields you see right here were the strawberry fields. It's now the Bushes that own the property and have subdivided somewhat, and there's a lot of summer homes along the waterfront there. We sold it in 1936, and because we were offered a price of $2,500 and couldn't afford to not take it.
Any comments on its current look? Okay, how about number 7?
See that fir tree? Uncle Julius's farm.
That's the same place with the water. You're halfway in from or about a third of the way over to Cypress. There's even road of Alvary's pointing now, going up the hillside there, and our house is in the middle. And basically that's it. The 20 acres right there was our place. Hasn't changed much, right?
Was my grandfather's house up above that? Yeah, yeah. Where would my grandfather's, where my dad lives now, where would that be?
What's the question?
Where would my grandfather's house be, my dad's house be from where your house was? Because it's right there.
Right about where the arrow is, I think.
Okay.
So that farmhouse is not there now?
The farm, our house, the white one?
Yeah.
Oh yes, very much is there.
Steve Jones.
That's Steve's, okay.
It has, in fact, it's changed very little, like it's a different color. But it's this road went up to the, if we come over to the left, as far as you can go, that's the road going up the hillside, and then there's the Dolphs, and then the Schultz's, and then on up to the schools beyond that. So if you're looking just almost directly eastward then from a point out in the water, and that was it. There, I had the free run of that beach all the way around to Clark Point and clear over to North Beach if I wanted it. It was
Not bad.
Wiggy Dolph and I had the free rein of that whole area.
Were there whales going through there then?
Were there whales at that point?
The whales have been existing here for some time. Oftentimes, we sit there and watch those, we called them blackfish in those days before we became cultured and called them orcas. But, yes, we saw them many times doing their thing right out there in the channel.
How about number 8? Are we looking at the school again?
Huh? This? Okay.
Anyone recognizable? All right, well, we'll give them the next. Give them the look.
Is that this hall?
Is that this same community hall?
Front door is right there. What's the occasion?
Who knows?
From a note on the back of the photo, this is a fellow from town, I forget his name, Horace Grant, I believe, and he was a preacher, I believe, from Anacortes, and came to the island to perform at a church service. And this is the gathering. I believe the date on the back was 1913.
Hard for anybody.
Number 9?
Hasn't changed.
And that's looking over down the park.
Where are we looking here?
Looking at the Guibas Channel, that's what we call Paul Jones Park, which is located near where this shipyard was on South Shore. This is Bud Strom again, and this is a typical school picnic. I can't tell you or identify what year it was or any of the people on there, because obviously from the cars you know it was in the teens or very early 20s. But that was everybody got involved in the school picnics, whether you'd ever gone to school or not. And the picnics were a wonderful thing, held usually the last week in May. And they'd bring ice cream from the ice plant, as we call it, in town, and pop and all those good things that none of us could afford, and it was wonderful.
Where on the island would this be exactly?
Where on the island exactly?
I'm trying to identify it with present day spots, but it's, if you go down the road to the Guimas Ferry Dock and turn right and go down there half a mile, in that whole area where the shipyard once was located, and the lagoon, as we called it later, kind of a water area in there.
About Demopolis?
Okay, the Demopolis property, that somebody knows what that is, okay.
Orchard, Loman had Orchard.
Beyond this, like Dorothy points out, the Lomans had their dock and also their big cherry orchard. But this was close, this wasn't quite that far down. It's where you, if you take that first road, the South Shore Road, I guess, heading towards West Shore from the Guimas Road by Wynn Anderson's store, the first turn that you make to the left and keep on going to the water, that's where you'd find this.
If I were imagining.
Yeah.
Am I standing in front of you?
Number 10, is there anything else?
Imagine this is the annual 4th of July parade on North Beach. It's happened forever. I don't recognize anyone. It was a dirt road. When I was here as a child, we had a dirt road going on, so I don't know when they started this.
Any parades? Who has who can recount a good 4th of July parade?
My sister and I were in one of them.
This has been just starting to go up the hill. I'm trying to, no water, it's hard to tell.
We were dressed as little girls and had lollipops in our old dresses.
Here's number 11, a similar
Mom has a
thing.
picture of it at home.
Same parade. And 12.
That's McCracken's, isn't it? Wheel that up by McCracken's.
It sure looks like a dragon.
Is this the McCracken's property?
Probably. Tony always had a lot of trees right along the edge of the road.
No, Butch Krieger, that is the Kraken's off to the right, the trees overhanging the road there. And, it's probably 43, 44, like 1943, in that area.
Which, where is that now?
Right by the Kraken's on North Beach.
In front of your present place?
Yeah, in front of your place.
Tony Mazer then.
Yeah.
Tony.
About 13.
Anybody read that, Kelly?
That's about the hall, I think it's a little history of the hall.
Oh, well, when we first came, that's the way the hall looked. And there was a pot-bellied stove and no electricity. My husband was president for a while and he had to go down and build a fire and light all the lamps, put oil in them before we could have a meeting. But this was before that. But that's the way the hall looked. I don't know if you can see the basketball hoop. There was a basketball hoop on each side. We used to play basketball.
What kind of events happen?
Kind of events, well, we always had a big, for a while better, I think, there was a big Thanksgiving dinner every year, and it was really great. We had wonderful food. it got too big. We had to quit it, it just got so, it was too big. Those island rooms.
Those look like those heavy tables.
One of the main things was our monthly meeting of the community club, as we called it then. I guess we called it the Improvement Club at that time. And our monthly meetings consisted of a potluck dinner always. And kids would run around, I remember it was pretty wild. Sometimes they'd go outside and play, make a lot of noise.
The same thing we were used to over here.
James, where was the stage?
Where was the stage? Question.
Oh, there was a stage up front, yeah, where this gate, I mean, where the door is, where there was a stage. And then on the side was a room where there was a kitchen, if you can call it a kitchen. There was an old wood cook stove up there, and nobody really used it for a kitchen. We never had anything involving a kitchen. It was too disreputable.
What changes have been made to the hall?
Well, the new kitchen was, and taking the stage down, and that was done in the, about in the early 60s.
Is that a hardwood floor under this press board?
No, it was just board slabs. And we just covered them up. Yeah, we just put wallboard over the floor. And we put all this wallboard up, which really makes a light. And the lamps, the lights were coming down without electricity, and they were a memorial to Bob Howard.
Alice Brooks, we used to have our school plays and programs and perform on the stage when I was in school and when Bud was in school, my brother, and put on some pretty good events for the whole community. Because the school was not big enough to have productions there, we used the hall. And put on quite an elaborate Christmas play every year and other events as well. Like so-called talent programs. And I remember one when I was 5 years old, and I had a poem I was supposed to recite called Apple Blossoms. My mother had made me a beautiful dress with apple blossoms on it. I was the first one on the program, and I was so scared. All I did was cry, and I could have just shot myself. Never forgotten that.
Do you remember the poem? Is the question?
It was called Apple Blossoms.
Can you recite it for us? 14, oh, hold it, yeah. Got my exercise.
Wynn Anderson again. The hall was built on property donated by Jack Kidd. It's interesting to note that the first land that was to be donated for the hall was at the crossroads, north of where the park is now. And that deal fell through. Jack Kidd, who lived in a house down where Lane Park's property is now, north of the store. Jack donated this property for the hall to the Ladies Improvement Club. And the hall was built in 1913, and it was for the ladies. If you go upstairs into the old, some call it the projection room or storage room, you'll see still written on the door, on the inside of the door, it says ladies smoking room. The table on the right, I believe is the table on the right here in the room now. And the bench that you can see at that table, there were a set of those benches, and they were just retired last year. I don't know when the addition was put on the back, but I believe that maybe Jane could tell. But I want to tell one more story about Jane and the that she revealed when we interviewed her a little while back, and that one of the activities of the women's club when Jane was younger was to come here to the hall and play dodgeball.
14. Is this the dodgeball team?
This is someone's 85th birthday, I believe. And the name's on the back of the photo, but too numerous to begin to mention that they're all named.
Anybody see anybody that you know?
I know most of them. You do? Yeah, I was living here at that time.
Are you in the?
I was probably in there somewhere.
Is your mother there?
Yeah.
On the corner
But
there?
she's in the back, you know, so in the back. That's my grandmother too, she's alongside of the Frank there. With the black dress on the right, and he was on the end.
Who was?
He was Frank,
Oh, Frank, right.
and
Is there a date on this picture?
on the very end, yeah, and then that's Lenore McGill's mother, and Mrs. Oh, they used to go through my, Pinner, and Mrs. Sherman, and, I think I'm Maud Nelson's mother. Mrs. Blue with the fur, on the left. And Rose Kitchen back there.
Oh, the very back.
Oh, yeah, I said Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lady alongside her.
What year was this?
Well, that was in the, 40s.
And they would have been standing in front of the present day library.
No, yeah, right up. And, that little lady sitting on the ground, she was, somebody's mother. And,
Did you see yourself in there?
no, maybe I took that picture. And Grace Nelson and her little boy sitting in front of her. Some in the back there, they Louis Penny. And, my mother's cousin was the hat in the back of my grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah, behind Eva, I can't see enough of that. No.
Is that Mrs. Rebecca there, the third one?
On the right?
Yes.
No, that's, Lenore's mother.
Oh.
Lenore McGill's mother. She married,
Reed.
well, she, after she comes out and she married, Mr. Reed after his wife passed.
Oh, okay. Peggy?
Yeah.
Well, how about 15? Another comment on 14?
Another school.
I know what this is.
Okay.
This is one of the first barbecues. Salmon barbecues that we ever had. And it was down on the beach. Well, I can't think of the lady's name.
Clippinger.
It's, well,
Clippinger.
yeah, Mrs. Clippinger. Thank you. I've been trying to think of her name. No, it's in front of her house.
What age?
And, Bill Fast salmon. We did it like the Indians did with boards, and nailed the fish to the boards. It's unfortunate there isn't a picture, there is later of the fish, the way we did it. And it was a big project. The men got, well, the night before, they nailed all the fish to the boards and salted them. And then the next morning, they got up about 4 o'clock and they had a trench out here. So they did it on the beach at first, then they moved it up here because it rained. In a couple of years. I think we had it 2 years on the beach and then up here from then on.
What beach is this?
What beach? It's down on South Beach where, well, you know where Benjestorps live? It's just at the end of the road there, right by the ferry. Yeah. And, anyway, this was one of the very first ones.
Jane, did people come from town? But did people come from town to have salmon?
People come in.
Oh, not much. It was pretty much a local event.
Okay.
It was to raise money for the school.
What?
It was to raise money for the school.
Is that what it was for? Raise money for the school.
PTA.
Oh, the PTA did it. Yes, our PTA.
What year was the first barbecue?
I believe 52 or 3, somewhere in there. Wasn't, after we came Belfast to move to the island, and he suggested we do this, and showed us how to do the fish. I think I'm the second one from the end here fishing up fish. There. That was before I was old and gray. I don't see anybody else, but I can really, well, I can see some in the distance. Wayne Gilpin, I think I see it.
Is there a captain, a man in a, is there a man in a captain's hat, a white captain's hat in the middle?
Oh, the man, oh yes, that was Dick Barber.
Was he a captain or was he just?
He was a fireman, retired fireman.
That's about it. And later there'll be a slide that shows how the fish was found. Somebody else will have to tell about that.
Behind it.
Number 16.
It has a cabin behind
Or
it.
something over, didn't they?
Right, it looks like they're pulling an electric cable across. Laying a cable across. Could have been power, I don't know if it's power.
I don't know, except that it is a telephone cable, not power.
Because it just.
Well, I know that is
It
the way
got
they
torn
did
out
it.
during the war, and then they had to relay it after the war.
They put up a dish, didn't they, Jane?
Is that basically where the telephone cable is across now, right there at the end of the, near Benji's doors?
Yeah, it is. They're both the same place.
Yeah.
Would this have been to the east or the west of the ferry dock, current ferry?
West.
Just where it is today.
Why did they have to lay the cable twice?
It got torn out. Even the electric one did, it got torn out once.
By an anchor or something?
What was the story of the telephone, first telephone getting down? Let me run that one.
Don Strom again. I'm not sure, but I
anchored out there in the channel.
It's losing power.
And picked it up and tore it out of there. But I know now where, Bud Hanson,
I think it's 1903, I think it's 100 years ago.
1903. We have just 15 minutes and 31 slides, so we may not do them all, but we're not going anywhere, so. Familiar faces?
I don't know. This was the important part of the church.
There it is.
Frank Daniel is the barn there. George Pinio, Marv in the back of that, Bill Beal next, Bill Fast next, Colonel Montague, Joe St. Andre.
Les Albertson.
What's his name?
Les Albertson.
Yes, Les Albertson, and Logie Weinstead.
And what were they working on?
That's it.
What were they working on?
Well, I think it was just a cleanup day, I don't remember. I think they found bees that day in the wall. They found bees and, they took the honey out and Helen Bonnie that took it and made wax candles. I don't know just exactly, I don't know what they were, it was cleanup day anyway.
At the community center or the church?
No, this is the church.
What year would that have been?
What's that?
What year?
What year would that have been? Oh, about, maybe the late 50s or early 60s.
Next slide.
This is one of our dinners at the, our Thanksgiving dinners.
Is this the hall?
Yeah. It's the church. Yeah, this is the church. We ate, well, the church wasn't any room in the back except a little kitchen. So this was out in the sanctuary.
Were the kids in the middle?
Yeah, there's a Beal kids. And there's me, right there. Colonel Montague. Next, that's Colonel. Jenny Pinio.
About 19.
He lived right next to the access between this ferry, which then was on the Anacortes side, was located at the foot of Q Avenue. If you came down Q Avenue and went directly north, you'd go right along to the Women's Ferry dock, and that's where Mr. Rickaby lived, just to the right of that entrance as you came down to the ferry. And he rented boats, and for a long time, this elk was the transportation. He'd push the scow over if they needed to have automobiles.
Say, Bud, I understand the Blackington house was moved from closer to the beach at one stage. Do you remember where it was?
Well, what you see right there, that structure is the Blackington house.
Right, but the whole building was moved, the way I understand it, is that right? I mean, it was.
I can't tell you that. I know right at that point, it was located on the north side of the street, of the road
Okay,
there.
that's what it is now.
I heard that a Blackington granddaughter was coming tonight. Is she here?
Mildred.
She called, Linda Black, and had hoped to come, and she was going to bring some pictures, but she's having flu all week, so next time.
Well, let's see, one last for the road. 23.
All right. I don't lot about it, but it was brought into service and owned by the Sloan Shipyards. That was the first passenger ferry brought on the island in 1916. And Sloan shut down in 1918, I think it was. They then sold the ferry to some private enterprise, and ultimately Bill Wiesner ended up with it, followed by Sandy Burnson. Sandy got rid of that ferry in 61 or 62 when it was replaced by the Elmar. Six cars.
Is it a ferry at 8:30 tonight?
What's that?
Is there a ferry at 8:30 tonight?
Yeah.
Sunday, yes.
It's so hard for us.
There is an 8:30 ferry, so we are almost at that time, so thank you everyone for coming out and sharing memories and stories. Was this an enjoyment for everybody? We will have these photos available in paper format, so if you ever want to come and look and let your memory go on a little bit longer, you can always do that. We are here, we have